Hello everyone. We are here to discuss today about the applications of big data analytics in diseases. Now, table of contents includes basic introduction of the big data analytics, overview of the applications of the big data analytics in diseases, and the references that were actually being used. So first, basic introduction of the big data analytics (BDA). Big data analytics actually refers to the process of collecting, examining, and analyzing of the large amount of data to discover the marketing trends, insights, and patterns, which can help the companies make better business decisions. Big data analytics will actually allow use of a large number of technologies both in treatment of patients and health management, a term that has actually been used to describe the massive volume of information created by the adoption of digital technologies that collect up the patient record and help in managing the hospital performance, otherwise too large and complex for the traditional technologies. Some of the major important applications includes patient predictions for the improved staffing, electronic health records, real-time alerting, enhancing of the patient engagement, preventing of the opioid use in the US, using health data for the informed strategic planning. Big data might just cure up the cancer, predictive analytics, telemedicines, integrating of the big style data with medical imaging, smart staffing and personal management, and advanced risk and disease control, and learning and development of the particular diseases. First, we come on to patient's production for improved staffing. Now, one of the major important classic problem that may actually shift the manager faces is how many people do I put on the staff in a given period. If you put too many amount of workers, then the amount of risk and the labor cost increases. With too few amount of the workers, you can actually provide up the poor customer services, which can actually prove out to be fickle for the different type of industries. And that is why big data analytics basically help in solving this problem by at least few hospitals in the United States. A white paper by Intel have actually been using data from a variety of sources to come up with daily and hourly predictions of how many patients are actually expected to be at each particular facility. The data-driven scheduling and resource allocations facilities, frontline staff can actually be freed from the tedious clerical responsibilities and focus primarily on taking care of the particular patients. Electronic health records. One of the major important widespread application of the big data analytics is basically the maintenance of the electronic health records, which are the type of electronic version of the patient's medical history that has actually been maintained by the provider over time and may include all the key administrative clinical data relevant to the processes related to the person's care under a particular provider, which includes demographics, progress notes, problems, medications, vital signs, past medical history, immunizations, laboratory data, and radiological data. It basically helps to access the information and has the potential to streamline the clinician's workflow. It is basically having up the ability to support other case-related activities directly or indirectly through various interfaces. Note, trigger warnings and reminder to patients are also one of the major important functions of the electronic health records. This is how electronic health records are actually maintained, which is basically having up the forms, sheets, meetings, diagnosis, new documents, notes, daily reminders, etc., all of which is basically being managed electronically. Now we come on to real-time monitoring, and real-time alerting. Healthcare providers actually benefit significantly from using data-driven real-time alert systems to track up the issues, for example, medication adherence, adverse events, and drug cost inflation. Artificial intelligence basically identifies the challenges and opportunities for improvement and sends timely alerts to the right people. Now, real-time alerting is basically helping in providing of the patient assistance, optimizing of the disease management, managing of the drug inflation, and customizing of the alerts to meet up the specific needs. Enhancing of the patient engagement. Now, many of the particular customers and hence potential patients are basically having up an interest in some of the major important smart devices, which includes healthcare, virtual patients chatbots, AI-powered patient self-control portal, 360-degree review of the particular patient, risk assessment for the preventive control, healthcare workforce optimization. Another way to do is basically new variables which are actually being used under development, tracking of the specific health trends and relying upon them, where physicians can actually monitor the patients. Preventing of the opioid use in the case of US. Opioids are actually a group of medications that are actually being used to treat or moderate to severe pain. It can actually be produced up in lab or from opium poppy plant. They can actually be lessened. Opium addiction can actually be lessened by the development of a certain type of medicines that actually block up the kappa opioid receptor. But the issue is that finding of the medications that can actually inhibit the action of the protein, for example, kappa opioid receptor, can actually be time consuming and time taking. To measure up the risk connected with prescribed opioids, researchers are basically experimenting with artificial intelligence softwares. Big data might just cure up the particular cancer. AI-based data analytics may actually automatically generate patient diagnosis, personalized treatment plans, and key information for the prognostic medication. AI systems can actually detect the minute anomalies often missed out by the human eye. They can actually be responsible for revolutionizing of the cancer research and treatment by identifying of the intricate patterns in medical data and quantitative evaluations of the clinical conditions. Reducing of the fraud and security. Some of the studies have actually shown that 93% of healthcare organizations have actually experienced a data breach. Personal data is extremely valuable and profitable on the black market, and that is why AI-based software can actually be used in order to track up all those particular type of frauds. Big data is basically having up the inherent security issues, and that may actually think that use a large number of organizations are basically much more vulnerable. But advances in securities, for example, encryption technology, firewalls, antivirus softwares are actually being needed to ensure a large amount of security so that the personal data is not getting leaked. Telemedicines, they have actually been present on the market for about 40 years, but only today, with the arrival of the online video conferences, smartphones, wireless devices, and wearable devices, we have actually been able to use up the telemedicines with full bloom. It is actually being used for primary consultation and initial diagnosis, remote patient monitoring, medical education for health professionals. Some more specific uses actually includes telesurgeries. Doctors can actually perform up the operations with the help of the robots. It actually allows the clinicians to predict acute medical events in advance and prevent the deterioration of the patient's condition. Patients can actually avoid waiting in lines, and doctors do not have to waste up the time with unnecessary consultations and paperwork. Telemedicines basically help in order to improve the availability of the particular care as patients can actually be monitored online. Integrating big data style with medical imaging. Medical imaging is basically vital, and each year in the US, about $600 million imaging procedures are actually being performed. Analyzing and storing of these particular images is actually quite expensive, and that is why medical imaging providers are basically responsible for explaining how big data analytics for healthcare providers could actually change how the images are basically being led. Algorithms actually develop analyzing of the hundreds of thousands of images, which could identify the specific amount of patterns in the pixels. This could actually undoubtedly impact the role of radiologists, their education, and the required skills. A way to prevent unnecessary ER, emergency room visits. AI-based software can actually basically help to prevent the future situations like this from happening. Alameda County Hospital actually came together to create a program called as pre-managed ED, which shares up the patient records between emergency departments. The system actually lets up the ER staff know things. For example, if the patient they are actually treating has already certain major important type of the test performed, if the patient in question already has a case manager at another hospital, what advice has already been given to the particular patient so that a coherent message to the patient can actually be maintained. This is another great example where the application of healthcare data analytics is basically useful and needed in the past hospitals without pre-damaged would actually repeat up the test over and over. Smart staffing and personal management. Without a motivated and coordinated team in healthcare, the quality of a patient can actually suffer, and that is why smart staffing and personal management is basically very much important. With the aid of effective HR analytics, busy medical institutions can actually enhance up their staff organization by predicting and meeting up the operation room needs, ultimately improving of the overall patient care. To anticipate when specific departments will actually require more staff during busy times, and efficiently allocating of the skilled personnel to other areas during the process of slower periods. Learning and development. In healthcare, soft skills are basically very important. For example, certifications to keep up the institution running at optimal capacity. By keeping up the track of the employee's performance across the board, while keeping up a note of the training data, you can actually use up healthcare data analytics to gain up the insights into who needs actually support of training and when. If everyone is able to perform and evolve with the changes around them, you can actually save much more lives. And that is how big data analytics can actually help you in the process of learning and development. Advanced risk and control. By looking closely at the details, for example, some major important about the medicines that the patient is actually taking, their symptoms, and how often they actually visit up the doctors, hospitals can actually predict which people with chronic illness might end up in the hospital. It's like knowing in advance who might actually get sick. By analyzing up the data, doctor can actually foresee if they are actually at a risk of health decline or not. And with this information, healthcare providers can actually offer personalized care, maybe adjusting of the medications or suggesting of the lifestyle changes. This is not just good for the patient's health, but it is also great for saving up the money and various amount of resources. Suicide and self-harm prevention. In 2018, a study was actually being carried out by KP and Mental Health Research Network. A mix of EHR data and a standard depression questionnaire identified the individuals who have an advanced risk of suicide attempt with great accuracy. Utilizing up a prediction algorithms, the team actually found that the suicide attempts and successes were about 210 times much more likely among the top 1% of the patients flagged across the data assets. This essentially actually uses big data analytics in the case of healthcare industry, which is basically proving out to be a testament that medical analytics can actually save lives. Improve supply chain management. Big data analytics can actually help in order to track up the supply chain performance metrics and make accurate data-driven decisions concerning of the operations as well as spending. Can actually save hospitals about $10 million per year. Both prescriptive and predictive models can actually enhance up the decisions for negotiating prices. By doing so, medical institutions can actually thrive in long term. Providing financial facility management. As you have actually learned by now, the data provides up a very crucial role in today's management. This is actually especially true in the case of business landscape, where data-driven initiatives have actually become up a requirement rather than a choice. There is no different in the case of healthcare industries. So far, we have actually covered multiple applications related to patients and medical innovations. All of these breakthroughs would not actually be possible if the finances of the different healthcare organizations would not be on track. Okay, now when we talk about the financial side of the healthcare industries, we'll actually encounter similar KPIs, which are called to be key performance indicators, as any other organization, for example, net profits, cash flow patterns, etc. We are talking about the drug cost, claim denial rates, reimbursement rates, and much more. Keeping up the track of all these indicators is not easy track. However, organizations that actually invest up in the software to collect, arrange, and analyze of their data will ensure their finances are actually completely in check. Developing new therapies and innovations. Now, big data analytics in the case of healthcare is basically having the power to assist in new therapies and innovative drug strategies by utilizing a new mix of the historical, real-time, and predictive metrics. The cohesive mix of the data visualization techniques, the healthcare providers can actually identify the potential strength and weaknesses. Okay, now by the help of data-driven genetic information analysis as well as that of the reactionary predictions in the case of patients, big data analytics in the case of healthcare can actually provide a pivotal role in the development of the groundbreaking new drafts. For example, some of the major important type of the big data analytics tools which are basically in use includes Zoho Analytics, Microsoft Power BI, Tableau, Apache Hadoop, Apache Spark, etc. Helping to manage and track up the mass diseases. Since the beginning of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic has actually impacted millions and millions of people across the world. The widespread nature of this virus presented up a challenge for the healthcare industry, that is to identify and learn from it and control the same COVID virus spread at the same time. In that context, big data analytics basically provided up one of the major important role, as it basically helped in the process of supported by the advanced data management technologies. Healthcare providers were able to track up the real-time monitoring of how fast it was actually being mutated under different conditions and how it can actually be completely prevented. This has actually been done by analyzing of the massive data sets coming from the diverse sources, for example, medical records as well as individual human behaviors. Improve drug description processes. Okay, drug description process can actually be improved by the help of AI-based softwares. One of the major important company, for example, Express Scripts, a third-party organization that actually manages of the medicines coverage for the clients, provide health insurance patterns. According to a publication from the Pharmaceutical Journal, the US-based company actually provides data from the US-based company collected data from about 83 million patients, which included everything from patients' clinical and behavioral characteristics. With this data in mind, the scripts can actually predict important scenarios. For example, who is likely to become addicted to a certain medications, or who is the patient who is not adhering to this particular treatment. If that last happens, the company immediately sends personalized interventions and supports to make up sure that the patients are able to adhere to the prescribed treatment. Now, in the frauds in the case of healthcare actually includes things which includes wrong billings or unnecessary testing, which can actually lead to financial losses of over $300 billion in the US alone. This is around 10% of the total health spending wasted due to the mistakes of the fraud. To tackle this, the companies actually use big data analytics and forecasting to quickly spot and prevent of the frauds or human errors. The same actually goes for the dosage ranges, test and other procedures also over time. This not only helps the doctors and caregiver trust technologies in the process of decision making, but also saves up a large amount of money for the healthcare professionals. Alerting of the health problems through personalized devices. Some of the major important type of the personalized devices which are basically being used includes Apple and Stanford, which basically created up an US Apple Watch users having up the age of about 21 and above to join up this particular type of study. Participants with irregular heartbeat received up the notifications and free doctor consultations with electrocardiogram ECG patch for further monitoring. After 8 months of testing, the 2019 results revealed that 0.5% of the patients had irregular heart rate modifications, but 85% of them were diagnosed with AFib at that particular time. This is how all these particular type of personalized devices are basically helping up in order to monitor up the heart rate studies also in the case of patients. Bluetooth is basically helping up the people with asthma. A company called as Propeller Health created up a special inhaler that actually uses up the Bluetooth to connect to a specific smartphone. This inhaler collects up the data about when and where a particular person actually having up the asthmatic attack. Researchers basically show that the patients using up this technology have about 60% fewer asthma-related emergencies. In some places, the data reveals specific triggers, for example, proximity to railroads, helping up the health authorities to take up the preventive measures. Now, types of big data analytics based upon the applications can actually be classified into 4 major important classes: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. Descriptive, what actually happened. Diagnostic, why did it happen. Predictive, what will actually happen next. And prescriptive, what should I do. Okay, the level of popularity in the case of descriptive is actually being used by almost all the organizations. Diagnostic is actually being used by many organizations. Predictive is actually being used by a smaller but growing group of organizations, and prescriptive is not being yet now used. Benefits of big data analytics basically helping up in engaging up in data filtering and transformation to establish up a head hole cluster, creating up meaningful data flow, applying up the business logics and algorithms for the desired outcomes, and converting up acquired data into graphical representations for the process of visualizations. Conclusion: in the case of in this presentation, we have actually studied about data collection, preparing up the data, model evaluation, deploy, and monitoring, and how all these particular features are basically helping in the process of big data analytics. Thank you, everyone.